Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful you can join us. This is our 100th episode, so we're super excited.
We sure are.
We're super excited because today we have my kids, her
And
grandkids,
yippee,
Jordan and Philip. So
yeah,
thanks for coming on, guys.
yeah. Thanks so much for making this happen. 100th time for us, like woo.
No, that's awesome. Thanks for having us on here, and congratulations on 100 episodes. It's no small task, that's for sure. Yeah, thanks again for having us.
Yeah,
Thanks.
well, we really appreciate it. And so we thought that for our 100th episode, have you guys on and talk about what it was like growing up with, us doing all this spiritual, witchy, crazy stuff that, sometimes you guys were like, I think they've lost their ever-loving minds, and sometimes you guys were into it. So who wants to go first to talk a little bit about it? Jordan?
Let Jordan go for it first.
Well, for me, honestly, like I guess as much as it was sort of erring on the side of caution, I guess, when you were, because inevitably that kind of stuff comes up in conversation with friends or people that you meet out at a social event or something like that. I feel like now it's a lot more accepted, especially nationally, because other countries are doing their own thing, but nationally it's a lot more accepted than it ever has been.
True.
And but pre that, so when I was young and growing up, you never really knew kind of how people were going to react to that, which was always interesting. So, some people were really, really interested in it, and other people were kind of like, what do you mean? And like there was a lot of like negative connotations around a lot of that kind of stuff, right? Especially considering some of the symbols and that sort of thing. But for me, I think the biggest thing was like not initiating that like stigma of like religion or a certain type of spirituality, because it is so different, off the beaten path. It let me grow up to be like, oh, well, I don't have to necessarily drop into a certain category. Spirituality is spirituality, and it's more a matter of perception and how you look at it than what's written in some book somewhere, or not to obviously not to put down any religions or people that are that way, but for me it just gave me a lot more spiritual freedom to kind of just like discover what I truly believe was spirituality, not what somebody told me I had to believe, right?
Firsthand, you were getting it firsthand. No matter which way either one of you looked at it.
And what about you, Philip?
It just felt normal. That's just how it was, I guess.
You're always just raised that way, so you didn't know different, right?
Yeah, I didn't really know much different, so it felt normal to, I don't know, believe in other stuff that could be out there.
Yeah, well, that's good. What do you remember? What your first kind of initial, I don't know, seeing a ghost or that kind of experience was for you?
Yeah, I've always believed in it, and you get just spooked out or you see a ghost. You think you see a ghost.
Do you remember your first experience seeing a ghost?
I'm trying to remember, but no, but it usually is the one you told me when I was in my room when I was a child, and I would talk to the one on the dresser.
Yeah. But do you remember, what's your first one that you actually remember?
I'm trying to remember, to be honest.
In the house with the boys?
What's that?
In the house with the boys in the basement?
Oh yeah. There was a couple stories from there. Like trying to get his neck pulled. I don't know. I always just seen like you would see something run by, but I would always think, even if there's a spirit there or something, if as long as I kind of let it be, it will be, leave me alone, and it'll be nice. So
I think we taught you not to be afraid of them. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. What about you, Jordan? Do you remember your first real experience?
honestly, other than stories, I don't really remember much of anything. I feel like going back to what I was talking about before, I sort of just like went my own way with my spirituality, and I think that a lot of that sort of like closed off my ability to maybe see more than or to see things that I could have potentially seen. But I mean, aside from stories as a kid,
Remember?
I honestly don't have any real memories. Like there's definitely been like, feelings, right? You're like in an old abandoned house or something, right? And then you just like, you get that like weird feeling inside, right? Like something's not right in here. But as far as like seeing something, visually,
Yeah.
unfortunately for me, I think I'm too closed off to that. But
Day will come.
Well, and that's fair too, right?
Your
Because
day will come.
we don't all want to see
No,
that all
no.
the time either, right?
Yeah.
Or is there any practices that we taught you boys that you've taken into your life now, of things that we did that was either ritualistic with it or along that path that you have adopted into your life?
Well, for me, like I feel that a lot of kind of the backing for like a lot of the spiritual stuff is all focused around the mind over matter thing, right? And like, put it out into the universe and visualize this, and following your mental train of thought, and then like creating that in reality for yourself, right? So I actually do that a lot with a various amount of things, just because it's like, okay, I want to see myself here in the next 2 years, right? And then I spend time focusing on myself and what it looks like for me to be there in 2 years. And that just gives me the motivation to continue working at it, for one, as well as, right, you're just putting that kind of energy out into the universe, tuning yourself to your end goal, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Frequencies around you and things like that. It's true. There's always energies working in all ways around you to make things happen.
Yeah.
I just remember you guys when you were younger, when you thought you saw a ghost, you go, "Grandma, there's something downstairs. Do you want to go and have a look?" I went, what does it look like? I don't know, but you need to come and have a look because there's something down there or there's something in there. I just remember that. I remember Philip giving you crystals to hang at your door. I remember giving them to you, Jordan.
I think you still have some hanging, to be honest. With the old vibe, because I know Tay's real into that too. She'll get into that if just like you come in somewhere and the energy feels off. She'll do like smudging and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, crystals hung up.
What about you? Do you do anything like any of the practices or anything that you took into your life now?
I just Tay does it for me. And like I said, it's more of a
his girlfriend.
I was just gonna say that.
It's more of a, if I have a chill energy and vibe, then I'm not too worried about all that. You know what I mean? It's just how you kind of perceive it.
Yeah.
So I just wouldn't let it bother me. So I usually don't feel too off with stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. If the energy feels weird or something, then maybe we'll end up smudging. But usually just Tay does that. So
I remember you guys, your mom always saying to you, especially when you got into your teens and driving, she would say, "Remember now," and you guys would go, "I remember. I don't go faster than my angels can fly." No, Mom.
I mean, growing up, I think I tested them pretty well. So
there you go.
Yeah,
they can go pretty quick.
I still have a guardian angel. It's a little gold coin with a clip. I still keep that on my sun visor.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Depending on like not necessarily how much belief you put into it, but just like having it there, I'm not going to try and mess with the universe. So the more help I can have, the better, because I mean, notoriously me and Phil have pretty terrible luck.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Don't say that.
Maybe we should smudge ourselves or something.
There you go. Yeah, well, we're currently just putting that out into the universe right now, so we just made a huge mistake.
Yeah, you need to wind that back in.
Yeah.
Actually, I was impressed the other day when I had a conversation with Philip, and he said to me in the text, I wonder what my lesson is supposed to be from this. And I thought, oh my God, I taught them something. Yay. It's that reflection, right? So
Turns out to be very careful when you're backing up.
Very, very careful.
Some people aren't paying attention, you know?
Well, there's a lot of people not paying attention.
So did you, as growing up, because we were the way we were, do you think that your friends thought we were odd, or did you have a problem introducing us to your friends, or them being around if we were doing something like that? Or did it not just kind of really phase you? That's just who we were.
I think for me, it depended on the friend. Honestly,
Yeah.
you know, you had to gauge that situation at the time, right? There's some people that you can just tell are mentally a lot more open to, you know, other things. And then there's people that are so closed off that, you know, things are just better left alone at that point, right? So it's like, oh, maybe, you know, who am I inviting to the house? You maybe not, you know, you okay. So for me, it was all circumstantial, depending on which friend it was and what the occasion was and what was going to be happening at the house when I invited them over. That was the ultimate deciding factor for me. So
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fair.
you didn't know if it was readings, Reiki, or what you're walking into, eh? Teacup reading. Interesting for you guys, just the same.
Yeah.
Not the normal kind of kids growing up with, you know, other religions and think that that was what we did.
Well, I think for me, like as your mom, raising you when it came to the religion, even though we baptized you Catholic because it was important to your dad's mom. Not that that's a reason, but that was our reasoning. Was I always felt like you guys should choose your own path. I mean, I wanted you to believe that there was a higher power because I think it's important in a time of need. But I always wanted you to pick your own path. And you guys used to make me laugh sometimes, the things you'd say, because Jordan, you were like into like, can I believe in Zeus? And can I believe in, right? And Philip was like, tried to push the boundaries a little bit. Well, what if I believe in Satan? Well, okay, maybe not that. Maybe we can go a different other way. Right? But I felt like having that. And then when we were raising you and when we did live with grandma and we did see spirits and stuff that you guys maybe don't remember now, is we were always really open with you to never say to you, there's no such thing, or there's, because we always wanted you to be open-minded, like that, Jordan. So
that's where, like, for me, I mean, I know you kind of said it there a couple of times, but like the term like religion, I typically don't use it that much. Because I feel like it just applies like a set, you know, if you're talking about religion, it's very finite, the lines of you know, this is the religion and anything outside of this is not that religion, right? For me, I look at like religion more as spirituality, because, you know, there's spirits, there's energy, there's this and that. I don't know how, you know, I don't know what's controlling all these forces. I have no idea. So I'm not going to try and, you know, classify that. I'm just going to be kind of open to, you know, everything. That's, I think, why, like, when I grew up, you know, even in high school, you know, you would have people that would like to debate that kind of thing, right? Because anytime religion comes into the conversation, it can always turn into a debate. So for me, I was never so closed off or so restricted by like certain beliefs. You know, if somebody was trying to have a debate with me about what their religion was, I would say, okay, I'm sure you have some sort of a book, right? If you have an extra one, give it to me and I'll read it. And then we'll have this conversation, right? Because the more you know about each religion or form of spirituality, right, the more it can actually open your eyes. You know, different people, even very similar things, people can perceive very differently, right? you know, two people have one shared experience, but the perception of each individual is completely different. And I think a lot of times, you know, different religions don't even realize that they're speaking the same language, so to say, right? They're just so focused on, however, you know, whoever wrote the book viewed that situation, that's the law, right? Without saying, oh, you know what, this religion over here actually, you know, they have a similar situation going on there, but their perception of it is completely different. Well, what can we learn from both views, right? Because you can learn something from everybody's perception, right?
Every second of every day. You know, I know that when Kim and her brother Dean were growing up, your uncle Dean, I always let them do what they wanted to as far as religion went. And, you know, they experienced with different things. Your mom more so than Dean. But remember also too that Dean always said to me when he was growing up, Mom, I don't want anything to do with that stuff. I'm an atheist. And I'd say, yeah, right. And but I smudged his wedding and everything else. So obviously he's not. He's proved to that he's gone on the spiritual end of so much. So it just runs in the family. Your mom too, where she's gone with it. You know, what we're doing today with it is beautiful. So it certainly brought you kids in that avenue. You had no choice, kind of, sort of. You do now because you're adults, but when you were younger, you were sort of just following the lead, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like also that's a word that got thrown around far too much for a few years.
What's
Atheist.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
because I think what a large thing about that is people didn't want to be restricted by the rules of religion.
Right.
It's not necessarily that they didn't believe in anything, but they didn't have any other way to like portray that to somebody, that they didn't have a set religion, so to speak, right?
Sure.
So they just went, well, I'm an atheist.
And that's it. You know,
That's it. Oh, so you believe in nothing?
yeah,
Not nothing. Oh, well, an atheist is somebody that believes in nothing.
nothing. Yes, exactly. Look at him.
So,
What about you, Philip?
I just think everyone can kind of believe in whatever they want because it's their life. I don't see why you know, people need to battle between religions when they are so similar in a lot of ways. So I don't know. I just believe, like, if you believe in something and that's how you perceive the world, then that's good. You know.
Yeah,
True.
I would agree with that. And I mean, that was always one of my things, is like, you look at all these different religions, and I don't know enough in depth about them, but I know that most religions, you know, light candles or have incense or do whatever that is similar
Do
for
things that
whatever
brings-
their way
Yeah.
is. And so it's funny when they fight against each other, because
They're
I'm
so
like,
similar. Yeah.
the only difference is really
Yeah.
the name of who you're praying to, right? So
And your beliefs around it too. But I mean, yeah, spirituality takes in so much now that this is the reason we're on here with you, is to explain that spirituality touches us all in so many different ways. And it's so beneficial in the way that we are today and what we're trying to prove out in this world of making everybody be together, you know, not have the hatred and everything else. I think spirituality really pulls that in and says, you know, let's just get along, and but all these different ways of being spiritual, because we're still learning like so much by talking to people.
sure, absolutely.
Oh,
Well, like, you know, again, everybody has their own way of perceiving the universe, right? So that even people that follow the same train of thought, it's just going to vary slightly from person to person, because they're attuned, you know, slightly differently than the person before them. You know, I feel like the biggest problem with, you know, the fighting and all that kind of stuff is more so just ignorance, like ignorance between, you know, different types of religions. You know, people not willing to learn about something else because it's like, no, this has to be the way. So they won't open their minds to the fact that, like, oh, you know what, that is very similar. Oh, okay. You know, they're because everybody seems to have this weird view that like the other religion is just like doing things wrong or doing things bad or whatever it is, right? So if people would just kind of learn to, I remember even, being younger and telling people about, your guys' spirituality and stuff like that, and talking about angels, and they're like, oh, so they're, they're Catholic or they're Christian. Well, no, there's angels in multiple different religions or faiths, and they're not called that, right? Maybe they have some sort of different name, but if you look at, their characteristics and what purpose they serve, as far as, serving your spirituality, it's all more or less the same, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. That's so
Absolutely.
interesting too.
That's
So-
nice. I feel pleased that you grew up and that you felt like you had that choice of how to find your own spiritual path, and that because you worry about that as a parent, that did I, should have I given them some kind of religion that was set, and it was so not in alignment with myself that
Excuse me.
I'm really glad that you felt like you got to make your own paths and take them to where you need, and give that sense of, that higher power, whatever that is for you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like I said, I feel like the fact that there was no sort of set rules, right, is the biggest reason why I was able to kind of, be open to everything. Yeah, right. Approach everybody's view or everybody's faith or whatever with an open mind and open eyes, and just be like, oh, I can see kind of where you're coming from, or I can see where they're coming from, versus, being slotted in. And I'm not saying that that's the wrong way to go about it, because people have their faiths, and if you want to follow them, then that's, completely up to you.
Yeah.
But I know that also people that are very strict about faith, a lot of times their kids are the ones that end up rebelling and going to do, whatever can be the opposite of this. That's what I want to do, because it was pushed on me so hard growing up that, like, now I was never given the opportunity to see what was around, and I was never given the opportunity to really make a choice there. So now I'm making the choice, and I just, I wanted to do something completely different, and that's more so just like an escapist type thing.
Yeah. That's true.
So not having that, I feel like, gave me, that ability.
I think so too. We shared a lot of laughter over the years too. Through some of this stuff too, stories and all the rest of it, but scary stories sometimes too. Remember sitting back and telling you guys some of the ghost stories and that, and you're wow, that I knew, and your mom too. So
Well, and I really like too that how we always would take you boys out in the night and go out and look at the stars. And do you remember that, going out and it would be dark and late, and we take you out and we try to look for the shooting stars and the stuff like that, just to give you another perception too of just how vast the world is, right?
That's right.
Do you
Yeah,
remember?
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we are so small.
You were gonna say something, Philip?
No, I just said so much unknown out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And aren't we learning a lot of that? I don't know if it's just all social media and that, and some of it you can believe, some you can't. But on the other hand, it's like, wow, sure opens your eyes to the possibilities of what could be there, right? So in front of us, it's just a matter of collecting the information to know it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that I'm grateful, and I'm grateful that you boys came on, even though I know there was a little bit of hesitancy. but I'm really grateful that you could, because for a few reasons. I feel very grateful that we get to do this podcast and meet these different people that were opening people's mind, like you said, Jordan, to know that there's all these different ideas out there, and what's right for one person isn't necessarily right for another.
That's right.
But if we're searching for our past, it's nice to know that these things exist. Too, I think it's really great as far as memory should, whatever happened with this podcast, and at some point, one or all of us are not going to be at one point, none of us are going to be a part of this world, but to have this memory to
Look back on
to
later.
celebrate, and for you to be on our 100th episode was really important to both of us.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you,
Well, we're so proud of you, number one.
yeah,
And we also wanted to show people that, you know, you're doing great, and you watch spirituality all your lives pretty much. And this is what this podcast is about, to show people that all different kinds of spirituality out there. And, you know, this podcast is to help you to find your bliss, to follow the one that, you know, inspires you the most, but to bring you happiness, to open up your world to all kinds of all things you can imagine. It's just imagine of believing in yourself and what you're doing, right?
Mhm.
so do you think if some point you decide in your life to have children, do you think well, no, I'm not saying, because that's your choice, right? I know I used to not be that way, but it's your choice, and if that's part of your path of what it is. But do you think if you were to have children at some point, do you think you would raise them similar in that way spiritually, or do you think you would raise them differently?
Is this for me?
I love you. I love you, because
Well,
in
I'm not
either
heavy.
way, right?
I don't believe in. I don't know. I'm not heavily into some of this belief, so I feel like they can kind of figure it out themselves on what they want to believe in. Like, I'm not gonna try to push them in a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I'm not gonna stop them from believing in something that they want to believe in either.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, very much the same for me. I'm not necessarily, I probably wouldn't give them the same experiences that I had growing up, because that's just not my perception of spirituality. I mean, it's my perception because I've obviously been, I've been seeing it for 30 something years now, right? But that's not like what my core belief is, as far
Right.
as like some aspects of it, yes. Some aspects of it, not so much. But for me, I would definitely want to, raise them with like an open spiritual mindset, right? Like, maybe even give them the chance to like go to different temples or places of worship, and experience different things, and give them the opportunity to judge each of them themselves, and what works for them, or what the, speaks to them inside, and what doesn't, right? And allow them to just sort of build their own belief system around that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I agree with that, because that was one thing I loved when I was growing up, because I loved church. To be honest, I did. I loved church. I don't know what I loved about it, but I loved it. And I went to all kinds of different church. And then somebody said to me, "You can't do that. What religion are you?" And I'm like, "Well, Catholic." And they're like, "Well, then you have to go to the Catholic church." And I remember coming home and just being so upset and saying to grandma, like, "Why do I have to go to the Catholic church? Somebody told me that." She's like, "No, you can go to whatever church you want. You just go and, get what you need from it." And so then I did. And I loved that. I think that there was that ritual with it. There was that openness, that belief in there. I felt so often when I went to it, there was something that they said that I was like, "Ooh, are they speaking to me? Do they know what's going on in my life?" Right? So
That's true.
but I didn't feel bound by it like the same way I would if I was raised, and not saying that that's a terrible thing. Like you said, Jordan, it's not a terrible thing to be in a religion, but I just like the openness that I could make that choice for myself.
Yeah, because you can bring in anything you want with spirituality. You really can. It's up to you.
And the older I get, I
Yeah.
think, and you guys are maybe the same as well, and you're probably the same as well, is that the more you grow and the more that you learn about these different spiritual practices or whatever, you try on what fits, and that sticks or it doesn't, right? And I think that's great that that's the way you want to raise your kids, to be
Open.
free to choose. And like, should you, that if that's on your life path, right? Should you choose that, to raise them that way, to be, have that open mind, but also see what sticks for them.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I don't want to just like drop them into a box and be like, "Here you go. this is what your life is going to look like from now until the end, right? Or this is what the end is, right? And this is what comes after, or, because here's the thing, again, going back to the, looking at the stars, for how big the universe is, how can we possibly think that we can fathom the rules and the way that things work without having knowledge of anything outside of like this little blue bubble that we live in, right? So to say that things are a certain way because this one person said so, or whatever, I just don't think is fair. It's not a fair shot to the kid to then be able to, make a decision for themselves as far as, whether that is right or wrong, what they feel like inside, right?
Right.
Because I think that like with the energies in the universe, a lot of it comes down to the way that like each individual person is sort of tuned, like, as if we're all old antennas, how we receive the signals that the universe is sending, because the way that you receive the signal and the way that I receive the signal may come in two totally different forms, right? And if you look at it, openly, that might lead you to, maybe say a certain faith or another one. But then you might have a feeling or have an experience and look into that and say, well, hang on, that doesn't fit with the way that I feel that this faith should be, right? So I think for everybody to try and lock yourself into one particular faith, I feel like is just doing a disservice to you and your potential to find happiness or have your eyes opened by the universe, essentially.
Well rounded. Yeah.
Nothing.
Just listen.
You're just listening. Okay. So if
Sorry,
you
everybody, I'm awkward. No.
you're not awkward. It's all good. So if there was one thing, I guess, in the end that you could say to our followers or to us, something you think that would be important for people to know, what would it be?
For me, it would just be, don't ever try and close yourself off, be open to everything, right? Because you just never know when the right thing is going to come, right? Even if you think you've already found it, maybe you haven't, because maybe something comes along later in life that's more right for you as a person. So I guess that would be mine, is just don't ever close yourself off to any potentials, because you just never know.
Nice.
Philip?
Just carve your own path, fill it with skulls and blood if you have to. Just kidding. But just figure it out for yourself, basically. Like, you're gonna believe in what you believe in, and just because someone else doesn't matter. You still can believe in whatever you want to. So just find your own way, basically.
Nice. Well, we so appreciate you guys
taking the
coming
time
on here on our 100th episode. We probably won't try to bug you until at least the 200th episode. So hopefully by then you'll be a little more, into no.
That's your mother saying that. That's not your grandmother saying that. I will find you. Guaranteed.
But we love you guys, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and just kind of share a little bit about our lives together and your take on it,
experiences.
I think it's important to people to hear that too, that just because we had our own same beliefs but different as well, how it impacted you guys, and I think that's great for people to hear.
I do too. And different.
Well, thanks
for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us on. It was a bit of fun. So
yeah, it was a bit of fun. Okay, well, love you guys, and thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next week.
We sure will.
see ya.
Nice